Hello and welcome to this Project in a Box video tour. In this session we're going to be having a look at the new features in version 4.3 of Small Team Edition, Enterprise Edition and Live Edition. So broadly this can be divided into two areas: things that we've put into the new browser app, things that we've put into general improvements around property management, and a few other items as well. So you've always been able to access Project in a Box through two interfaces, either the Windows application installed on the machine, which is always able to support the entire range of functionality, or the browser application, which can run from any device which supports a browser and has connection back to the server. That can include smartphones, tablets, etc. We've now added quite an extensive set of admin controls to the browser app. You were always able to work on a project, but not necessarily to administrate it. So now you can administrate a project, changing permissions of users, etc., updating reporting information, setting new reporting structures, etc. You can also create projects, create portfolios, you can create and manage user permissions, etc. So really extending that into the day-to-day administration of projects. There is still a small set of functionality which has to be done from the main application on a Windows app, and that's around the sophisticated complex forms stuff of defining new views, defining new report specifications, etc. We've also added resource analysis, so you were able to use standard views and user data ranges, etc. on tasks and risks and issues before, but not to get your resource analysis. Well, you can do that now. So you can run resource analysis, depending on your permissions, of course, always for yourself, so each individual can go and see their own resource allocations, demand level allocations, etc. But you can also, depending on your permissions, go and see them for groups of other people across the project, the portfolio, selected groups of individuals, etc. You can also now edit your planner files directly. So in the browser, of course, when you take a file down to edit it, you need some sort of application or an app to run that file. Now if that's on a Windows environment or any other sort of PC with a browser, then you've probably got some applications installed to do that. If you're on a tablet or a smartphone, then whilst you might be able to look at your Word files, etc., you won't be able to edit planner plans because you won't have an app. We don't provide Planner as an app. So what we've now done is to build that into the browser app so that you can check out a plan effectively to the server. You can update the content of that, and in fact that's pretty much a full plan edit and creation capability. So you can add new tasks to it, you can add summary groups, you can update percentage completes and add resources, etc. So you can create new tasks, manage them, delete them, or just simply update them. And you can then check that back in, and that will then load its data through onto the server, feeding all the normal notifications and analysis windows. So that's really useful to be able to update that content from wherever you are. That's currently for the tasks plan part of Planner, and we'll be adding risks and issues in due course. So loads of new stuff in the browser app. We've also given it a makeover, so it looks nice, new and fresh, and also adjusted it all so that it fits better on form factors like smartphones and tablets, etc. So it will move around on the screen for you. The forms will lay out appropriately for the type of device and screen area that you have. So moving then into other areas, we've extended the property management aspect, and this has been very popular for a period of time, having if you like a sort of database of metadata for your projects coming in from a range of different sources. So we've extended now the sources again. You've always been able to pull automatically certain fields from your plan, so you've been able to get the first date in the plan and the last date in the plan as a start and end date, percentage complete. You've been able to get the number of overdue tasks and various other statistics which we've calculated automatically. People have also wanted to start pulling out particular data from named tasks, and this is something that you can now set up to match your own particular requirements. So if you've got a task in your plan, perhaps your templated plan, always called on-site date, then you can look for on-site date in each project's task library, and you can then pick out the attribute you want from that, like the start date, the end date, the comment, the percentage complete, etc. So you can take that data automatically out of your plan. You just set up the rules, and it will then do that every time a project plan is updated. As part of updating the natural statistics, like we talked about, number of overdue tasks, it will go through and look for these other things as well, and it will then drop those into properties for your projects. So this is really useful at helping you match your real world circumstances of what you actually collect in your plans. You can now also alias all of your property names, not just your system project properties, but the ones that come from spreadsheets and the ones that come from plans, all of these sorts of things. So although they have a sort of programmatic name when you first create them with underscores, you can now turn that into whatever you want it to be as a display name. So when it's used in reports and on tables and in notifications, etc., you can have that as you want it. We've also extended what you can do with the charting of these properties. So all of these properties that sit in the database are available to be pulled into various places, rules for portfolios, as we'll talk about in a minute, but also onto charts and into tabular views, etc., for display purposes. Now, in the past we could do things like totals, but we could only total things that were numeric values. So if you had the budget cost of 10 projects, you could have the total at the bottom of that. If you had something like a status or the name of the project manager, that wasn't totalable because it was text, but we now offer a count type total. So if you have 5 projects that are on track and 3 that are in exception, and 1 that's not yet started and 1 that's failed, it'll total those up for you at the end of the row next to your total project costs. You'll see a count of that sort of statistical analysis of those entries. So this is again really useful for quickly being able to look at that down a list of maybe 50 tables and get a feel, 50 projects in a table, and get a feel for all that. We can also then put those now onto the charts. We've chosen not to put them directly onto the bar charts and pie charts because although that looks fine when you've got 4 or 5 projects, many people have 50 or 100 projects in these sorts of portfolio reports and analyses, and that just becomes incredibly cluttered. You can't really read the data. It gets in the way of each other for different fields, but also gets in the way of actually seeing the segments in the pie chart or on the bar chart. So what we've decided to do is put it onto the key. So when you specify a key, you can also have the actual value showing against the key entry and also the percentage that represents of the total. If you want, you can have one or the other or both. So you get the statistics in context with the chart, allocated to the colour associated with the entry in the chart, and that seems to work very well in terms of getting that information across. And of course it's very scalable for the number of projects that you might have in your particular output chart. Okay, so moving on to a couple of the other areas then. We've had a facility for some time for creating portfolios based on rules. This has been quite a popular thing. It was relatively simplistic in terms of the sort of rules that you could apply. You could create a rule to say put all the projects in a portfolio where one of the properties for that portfolio was greater than or less than or contained a match to a certain constant, a number or a piece of text. And you could compound those rules together. So that was, quite useful. But we've taken that a whole step further now by adding the ability to include dates in that. So you can now look for all the projects that are due to complete within the next month, for example. And you can have a portfolio of all those, or all the projects that started in the last month, for example. So a date is an element as well as numeric and text relevancy in these filters. But you can also now, rather than comparing against a constant, you can either compare against a fixed date, and that date can be either a date you type in, or it can be a date plus or minus a certain amount of today, and that allows you to look for things a month from now or over the last year, for example. But you can also compare a property to another property. So you can say, give me all the dates, give me all the projects where the project's expected finish date is different to the baseline finish date. longer than, ahead of or behind the baseline finish date. So you can look for those sorts of conditions now, or give me all the projects where the benefit value is less than the budgeted cost. So you can go away and pick from. Often customers are having 500-600 projects now. You can go away, and that's just too much data really to do it by eye. You can go away and get the portfolio rules to produce those particular sets of things that you're interested in. Really much more powerful than it was before, and again you can compound all those rules together, so that's really a useful thing to be able to do. We've also extended the navigation types that you can support from the navigation diagram. So you've always been able to jump to functionality. So for example, you could have a button which said project report, and when you clicked on it, it would open the project report form. The user could then choose the standard templated report they wanted to and press run, and it would go away and run the report. We've taken that a step further, and we now have an argument associated with several of these fields, which is of these functions, which is that you can name the particular saved report on project and portfolio reports. So that means you can have a button that says post a report. You click on the post report button, it fires off the form, but then runs it automatically with that particular chosen report in it. So for occasional users, for sponsors, etc., you can give them a navigation diagram which allows them to immediately interact with the latest content without them having to really have any sort of feel for what they do. There's an arrow saying run this, press this, and they'll get that report coming up. They'll then have the form there, so if they want to go and tweak and change that, they can then do that. They could go and pick a different report, but this is about engaging them in the process in a more immediate way. Exactly the same argument approach is now also available for the system project properties form that runs at the portfolio level, so you can give people the particular set view of data. So often now people are having hundreds of properties. They might want people to, a certain person coming into the navigation route, to update say 5 or 10 of those properties. So rather than having to open the portfolio properties grid and then select the right view to see the ones they need to edit, you can take them straight to that list. And this again is a good way of helping people get to the things that are most relevant for them. So quite a lot of new functionality in there, quite extensive areas, and in the next sessions we'll be looking through those in a bit more detail from the application itself. So just a quick recap on Small Team Edition, Enterprise Edition, Live Edition. Essentially all the same technical product. We just license it in different ways. So we have Small Team Edition, which is for a defined small group of users, £999. You can add extra users if you want to. Beyond 35 users you need to upgrade to Enterprise Edition, which you do by paying a fee, and you can then continue to add users as you want to at the price per user, and we offer an unlimited license around that as well. Live Edition is exactly the same functionality, but we host it for you and make it available to you on a SaaS basis. So it starts with a base pack, and then you can add extra users to that as you want to. We host and manage all the service provision of that for you, and you simply connect to it, either using the browser app or the Windows app. Both of them will work equally over the internet, and of course with the extended functionality now available in the browser app, this really starts to become a very attractive proposition. Okay, so hopefully you found that useful. Please contact us if you've got any further questions. There are 2 further tours that are available now to go on and look at all this in a bit more detail from the functionality itself. Thank you very much.